Welcome to Contemporary Black Voices, where we talk about the most important issues facing our black community. I'm your host, Chris Dawkins, for today, and missing today is the lovely Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell and the great Caleb Alexander. But we're going to talk today about pigeon racing and homing pigeons. And I have a good friend with me who we people mix us up all the time. Okay, they think I'm him and he's me, but it's Mr. Frank Dunn, and I had no idea that Frank Dunn had racing pigeons. We were talking on the phone one day, and I thought he lived in one place, and he said, "No, I need a place for my birds or pigeons or whatever." It didn't dawn on me, and I just let that go. And then he said it again. I said, "Do you really have pigeons?" So anyway, today we're going to find out about Mr. Dunn. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm glad to be here. It gives me a chance to talk about something that we've always been involved in, and I want to encourage more people to get involved in it also.
So let's start off by saying or asking, how did you get involved in pigeon racing?
I've had pigeons since I was about 8 years old. And when we were kids, growing up in the Denver Heights on top of the hill, like if you looked up the hill on Montana and the other areas, you could see these birds circling different houses. And we'd go up there, our whole little group would go up there and just watch them, and they would start talking to us about the racing pigeons. There was a German settlement, is what it was. And so we'd go up there, and they were talking about racing, and we're like, racing? And different kind of deals. And we got involved and started, hey, you kids, I'll let y'all have a couple of pair of birds and y'all take them home. And my father built a cage. That did it. It was all over there. And once I got them, it was just,
So
it's in my blood.
as an 8-year old kid, what attracted you to these pigeons?
Well, I had already had rabbits.
Okay.
So we had rabbits in the backyard. And then the birds, once I got them and they were talking about how they could find their way back home, that fascinated me.
Okay.
And they was on there.
How many other black folks are involved in this, both locally and nationally?
Well, locally, I think that at this time, I had a good friend of mine. His name was Paul Williams, and he was a good flyer, and he passed several years ago. But I think I might be home alone. I think I might be here by myself. Right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And what? Tell us about the pigeons. What is it? A certain type of pigeons that?
This is what, and when people ask me, because this is kind of like horses. If you don't know anything about a horse, you see a brown horse,
Mm-hmm.
but there's quarter horse, thoroughbreds,
Mm-hmm.
flower horses, and it's the same thing with the birds. If you don't know them, they got basically the same colors, and you look at them, we immediately know it's a bird.
Mm-hmm.
And we call them race birds.
Okay.
And so we immediately know that. But they started using these birds actually before the war. They were already racing in Belgium. But then they use them during the war, and the Rothschilds use them to carry stock
Communicate.
information back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was in the 1800s.
Wow.
Yes,
So tell us how many birds you have.
about 75 right now.
What?
Yes, yes,
75.
yeah. But they live in condos. But they live in condos. So one of my lofts, we call them lofts, is cages to folks. Is 36 by 10, and the other one is 14 by 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a race loft, that the bigger one, and then I have my breeding, and I breed in individual pens, and they're on the back of the
Would you
bigger
say
one.
you breed what?
In individual pens.
Okay. Okay.
And they're on the back of the other loft.
Okay.
Yeah.
75. So, okay, tell me about the training. How does this training work?
Let me tell you how we breed them first.
Okay.
Okay, because I don't want to twist you, because that's the most critical part. So when you're buying, if you want to be competitive, it's like anything else. If you want to run in a Kentucky Derby, you buy Kentucky Derby type horse.
Right.
It's the same way with the pigeons.
Okay.
Just doing the research, going in, doing your research, finding out what bloodlines that make sense on the area that you're in. So in Europe, unlike what we do, they have specially distance where we all race the multitudes of difference distance. They don't. They'll race they have a 200-mile group that only race 200 miles and they're 300 kilometers or whatever the case is, and they break it down. So you just, but I had one group that I brought in that had over 100 winners in the bloodline.
Mm.
So I did the research and then developed those groups, and it's several of them that I brought in to. One of them was a 200-mile group, one of them was a 400 to 500-mile group, and then another one was in the middle. And then when I crossed them or whatever I did on the breeding aspect of it, then it was that. But now once you breed them and the babies go into the loft, then you start getting them acclimated to the area. Once they start doing that, and then once the race season starts, about 6 weeks before the first race, we start training them. And we'll train them. I'll go 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles, until I get them at 50 miles, and I'll hold them at 50 miles, and then I'll take them one time 90, and then boom, races start. We're on there.
So the training basically is just to their distance and their speed.
Yes and yes. Okay. If you know anything about getting athletes in condition, it's the same thing with the birds. They have actually the same muscles that we have. They have sprint muscles and they have endurance muscles. So you train them to be able to handle the distance or whatever the case is. Some races that we have, it's a 100-mile race and the north wind is, say, 15 or 20 miles an hour behind them, then they're going to fly faster. So they don't have to use as much muscle. But now if the wind is out of the south the same way, then they got to work. So you got to prepare them for that.
So you have to check the wind and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
You know
you would think I'm a weatherman. Yep.
This is really fascinating. So back to the training. Okay, you got 75 birds.
And see, then that's total.
Okay.
My race team may be about 40 or 50.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you train, do you train just the race team or do you train all the birds?
No, just the race team.
Just the race team.
Just the race team.
So what's the other ones doing?
The other ones, once breeding season is over, then I keep them in separate deals. The hens and the cocks, they stay separate, and then that's it. They just get ready for the next season that they reproduce or produce or whatever the case.
Well, look, we're going to stop at this point and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Frank Dunn and the Dunn Lofts.
Dunntown Lofts.
Dunntown Lofts. We're going to talk about this even more when we come back.